Welcome to GKey Solutions Private Limited. SQL Server Database Interview Questions and Answers. Question number 5. What is null in SQL Server and how is it handled in queries? In this session, we are going to discuss about null in SQL Server. We start with what is null in SQL Server and how it is handled in SQL queries. What is null? Null means unknown, missing or not applicable value. It is not the same as 0, empty string or space. That means it is not equal to 0, it is not an empty string or even it is not a space. It represents the absence of a value. For example, while inserting the record, while inserting the data to a particular column, if there is no data for that, SQL Server automatically assigns it a null. It doesn't mean it is 0, it is empty string or it is space. Then how SQL Server handle nulls? In comparison, null doesn't equal anything, not even another null. For example, here we are using a case statement. Select case when null is equal to null, then equal, else not equal. For example, here we are equaling null is equal to null. It have to show the output as equal, but here in this case it is showing the output as not equal. Why? Because even one null is not equal to another null. But coming to the calculation, in calculation any arithmetic with null returns a null, even if you calculate null with any arithmetic values. 10 plus null, 10 into null, 10 minus null, all these things the output will be null. Why? Because it will take into consider, it will not take this null into calculations. Why? Because it will not consider it as a value for the calculation as well. If you are using anything with null, then it will show you the null as output. Then checking null, you must use is null or is not null. For example, while inserting the data into the table, if there are some columns with no data, you have inserted them into the table. If you want to know what are the different values that you haven't given while inserting the data, in such scenarios, to identify those data cells or those data elements, we can use is null and is not null things. For example, select star from employee where employee ID is null. That means while inserting the data into the table, you are not given anything. To identify such cells or records, we can use is null or is not null things to identify whether there is data or no data. That means is null means no data has been inserted. Is not null means there is something inserted for that particular cell or that particular column. This is about nulls in SQL Server. We'll see practically the things we have explained in this slide. For that, we just came to SSMS, that is SQL Server Management Studio. Here we are checking what is null in SQL Server and how is it handled in queries. Example 1, we are just selecting case statement like case when null is equal to null, then equal, else not equal, and we are ending the case and we are selecting this case statement. In this scenario, we are going to execute this query in demo at GKey database and we are executing it. The output is not equal. For example, if you given any value, for example 2 is equal to 2, in this scenario, what would be the output? The output would be equal. Why? Because 2 is 2, it's a comparison operator and it is true, then the value is equal and it is not giving not equal. While we are comparing null is equal to null, it doesn't treat even one null is equal to another null. In such a scenario, nulls are not treated in even arithmetic operations to compare as well. And coming to the next example, for example, we are comparing here like we are just calculating 10 plus null. Okay, let's see by executing it. it is giving null. If you like are doing any arithmetic operations with, for example, 10 plus null, 10 into null, 10 minus null, something like that, for any value you are doing some arithmetic operations with null, the output will be null. This would be the second example that we have discussed in the slide, and we have seen the output as well. And third one would be select star from employees where manager ID is null. See how we have to use null. Here we are just displaying the data by this query as manager ID is null. There are no manager IDs inserted while inserting the record. Those records we want to see. See, we have already created this table and inserted some data. This is how the manager ID is null. In this kind of a scenarios, we can use is null instead of null. Then it will fetch the records which are not given data for those records. In the same way, we can check another thing is not null. Here the manager ID is not null. That means the value inserted for that manager ID. We can see for this records manager ID has been given some value. For this Bob, manager ID is 1, Charlie manager ID is 1, David manager ID is 2. In such a way, we can use is null and is not null to verify whether data is inserted or not. And finally, as for the conclusion, if you are not given any data for a particular column or a cell, it is going to take it as a null. That means it's nothing, it's not 0, it's not equal to anything else. In such a way, nulls are treated in SQL Server database. And coming to the second point, difference between is null and equal to null. We have discussed is null in the previous slide. Now we are going to see the key difference between is null and equal to null. Equal to null doesn't work, always returns false, whereas is null is the correct way to check for null values. For example, we have given 4 bullet points as a difference. We have taken aspect, null and not null. We are just comparing them. First, we'll check the point called meaning. For null, represents an unknown, missing or undefined value in SQL Server. Coming to the equal to null, an invalid comparison to null. And coming to the evaluation point, for null, acts as a placeholder for an unknown value. Coming to the equal to null, always evaluates to unknown, never true. And coming to the third point, usage, for null it appears in table, data, expression or results. Coming to the equal to null, should not be used for checking null. Instead of use is null that we have discussed in the previous slide. Finally, coming to the fourth point, query impact. For null, it can be handled properly with is null, is not null that we have seen in the previous slide. And coming to the equal to null, returns no rows because equality with null is not valid. In such a scenario, is null and is not null can be used. Equal to null cannot be used in SQL Server databases. And coming to the summary of these points, null is like unknown or missing value. Use is null or is not null to check that unknown or missing value while inserting the records. Never use equal to null or not equal to null things to check whether the data is inserted or not. This is the difference between is null and equal to null. These things we'll see practically in SQL Server Management Studio. Here we have scripts ready. We are in demo at GKey database, and here we are creating a employees table, and we are inserting data, and we are checking equal to null and is null things in SQL Server, that is SMS. First of all, we are creating the table. In such a scenario, we are going to use drop table name, like we are dropping table, that is we are going to create employees. Why? Because if there already table existing, we are going to drop it first. Why? Because we are doing it from the scratch. We have done that. We have dropped the table which has been available, and we are creating that table again. The table has been created successfully, and we are inserting 5 records into the employees table with columns employee ID, name, manager ID, and values would be these values. See, 5 rows affected. That means 5 records have been inserted into the employees table. Here we are using equal to null. As we discussed, this is wrong to use in SQL queries. Let's see how it is going to work. We are selecting from employee. We are selecting start from employees. That means we are selecting all the columns from employees where manager ID is null. Let's see. If we execute it, the syntax has been compiled and no data has been given as an output. Why? Because the syntax of the query is right. We can use equal to, but with null, if you are using any equal to operator, it will not give any data. It will just execute the query. It doesn't give any data to you. And by using, instead of manager ID equal to null, we are using is null. Let's see how this is going to work here. See, here we can get the data where manager ID is null. In the same way, we can check where manager ID is not null. That means there is data for manager ID. This also we are checking here. See the data for this. In these kind of scenarios, we are not going to use equal to null. That is not applicable for SQL Server database. In these kind of scenarios, we can use is null or is not null things to get the data for those particular null handling things. Thank you.
Stay connected with GKey IT solutions on all your favorite platforms. Follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and press the bell icon to stay updated with all our latest content. Join the GKey community and grow your IT career with us.